I'm in the home of Mr. Nicholas Wilson. Hi Nicholas.
Hi.
Otherwise known as Mr. Ethical. Could you tell us how you got that name, please, Nicholas?
Yes, I used to work for a law firm called Waitman's, your neck of the woods in Liverpool. And for a long time I had acted for the John Lewis Partnership.
Okay.
And they sold their accounts, their store accounts, to a bank called HSBC Bank.
Okay.
Which is owned by...
I know them.
Well, they're owned by HSBC Bank.
Okay.
And they specialise in subprime lending and so on. Anyway, as soon as the bank took over the John Lewis accounts, they started adding illegal charges onto people's debts. And I told the bank, the first meeting I had with them, what they were doing was illegal. And that was the beginning of my problems. And I was telling the partners at Waitman's that it was illegal, they shouldn't be doing it. And the partner in charge, Andrew Cox, used to call me Mr. Ethical, because I kept complaining that what they were doing was illegal. So that's why I call myself Mr. Ethical.
Yeah. You got a hard time, didn't you, really, for doing the right thing?
Well, I reported them to the Law Society, and I was immediately sacked. I never got any support from the partners. But as soon as I reported them to the Law Society, they called me in for a meeting, within 2 days, and sacked me. It's the quickest they'd ever moved. When I reported it, they set up a thing called the Solicitors Regulation Authority, and it was them that dealt with it. And they upheld it. They said yes, it was illegal what they were doing. It was what's called a contingency fee, which is illegal. But they didn't take any action. They said it only happened in a small number of cases. Well, as I've said, 600,000 cases worth about £1 billion.
When I first returned to England, wanting to, because I'd been out of the system for so long, I bought a computer on hire purchase on the
From Dixon's or Curry's?
Curry's.
Yeah, well that's HFC.
And it was HFC. So I've been that as well.
Well, they did the store accounts for John Lewis. Well, John Lewis was actually HSBC. But the HFC did the store accounts for Dixon's, Curry's, PC World, Furniture Village, B&Q, half
so
the high
it's
street
massive
stores.
fraud,
It's massive. Is it? Well, I calculate about £1 billion.
Billion quid.
Yeah.
It's robbing people who can least afford it, isn't it? It's people who've bought a telly.
Well, apart from the store card things, I mean, I don't know your background, but you go into Curry's and buy a computer, that's just normal consumer. But what HFC specialised in, they had branches in shopping centres and stuff, in some of the poorer areas. And they specialised in subprime lending, and they made personal loans to people who couldn't get a loan from other banks. So they had very high interest rate. And that's all they did. I mean, it wasn't a normal bank. You couldn't have a current account or anything. They just lent to poor people. So yes, they were targeting the poorest and adding on 16.4% to the debt. So if you had a £10,000 debt, they'd add £1,640 before the lawyers had done any work. It was just...
And people are, disabled people are getting the money snatched off them. People, we all know what people are suffering under this austerity, and all caused by them.
And the fact is, the people who've been affected by this fraud, the average charge, we're not talking peanuts, the average charge is £1,500, which would be a year's energy supply for
groceries, energy,
It would make a huge difference to these people if they only knew about it, but they don't know about it because the media stunk.
That's disgusting, aren't they? We went through all that austerity, as they call it, poverty, went through all that suffering because the banks got us into it, and so we bail out the banks, we buy the banks. George Osborne turns up, not even in Parliament, in the Mansion House, and just sells it off. Not a billion quid, gone. Not a word, no one.
The RBS sell-off is going to lose 14 billion.
14 billion.
And the cuts, the welfare cuts they want to make are 13 billion.
Exactly.
I set up a business to try and get money back from people, and in order for that to succeed, I needed county court judgment details. So I could contact. So if you'd had a judgment against you from HFC Bank, I could write to you and say you're entitled to this money back. And I would have, and I did do for some people, I would have claimed the money back through the Financial Ombudsman Service because it's free.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't say to you, let's go back to court because you have to pay fees and so on. And a lot of people just don't have the money or the inclination to do that. So I was going to do it through the Ombudsman. Anyway, I applied to the Ministry of Justice. The Register of County Court Judgments is administered by a company called Registry Trust who have a contract with the Ministry of Justice. And I said to them, I want this information. I basically said, no, you can't have it. So it was covered up by the Ministry of Justice, but the worst is the Financial Conduct Authority. Last year, I did a Freedom of Information Act request to it was now the Financial Conduct Authority. They wrote back, and bearing in mind this is a formal reply to a Freedom of Information Act request. They wrote back and said we didn't do anything because the OFT had already dealt with this in 2010, which is true. And they said, and the bank's agreements with customers allowed them to have these charges. Now in 2010, November 2010, the Office of Fair Trading did make an order against the bank telling them to stop adding these charges until they changed their terms and conditions of their contracts, which meant they weren't entitled to add these charges. So the FCA is telling me to go away. I'm still shouting from the rooftops, and in the meantime everybody that's covering it up is getting rewarded. But also, I mean, what I really want to talk about is Cameron shouldn't be in power because of the way he's covered this all up. And how the Tories have put an HSBC director to the head of the BBC.
Having watched your performance this afternoon, I've got to say this to you, that either you knew, and you said, if you knew you colluded in tax evasion.
I categorically deny that.
Or you didn't know, and I think in that case you're either incredibly naive or totally incompetent. And I don't think that the record that you've shown of your performance here as a guardian of HSBC gives me the confidence that you should be the guardian of the BBC licence fee payers' money.
Well, let's talk to our political editor, Nick Robinson, who's at Westminster for us now.
It's a massive economic choice that has been made to cut the deficit, or try to do it this far and this fast. But it is also a huge political calculation that the Chancellor is making on behalf of the coalition government. The calculation he's making is that people will prefer big cuts in welfare, really dramatic cuts in welfare spending, in order to try to protect other areas of spending. Now, I say try because there are still very, very big cuts in spending, even in those areas that the government has sought to protect.
And Nick, even after an hour-long speech that we had from George Osborne today, there's still lots of details we don't have.
That's absolutely right. This is line one, if you like, of what will be a massive and long-running political saga. What the Chancellor did is try and write a story for us today, that he is seeking to deal with the deficit, that he's protecting health and education, overseas aid, for example, and he's doing it by cutting welfare and cutting waste. He says the title for this saga is Back from the Brink. Others may say it's over the edge.
All right, Nick, thank you, and well done for trying to get away from that person behind you.
Others may say edge.
You should be ashamed of yourself, mate. You should be ashamed. Shame on you, mate. Shame on you. That's a silly thing to do, man. Be ashamed of yourself.
I'm not ashamed of
Be
myself.
ashamed of yourself.
Why should I be ashamed of myself?
As you will know, HSBC were fined $1.9 billion in the US for money laundering, Mexico.
Yeah.
Money laundering.
Well, this is just for honestly for normal people now. That I mean, even the man in the pub, they know what.
Everybody knows HSBC. Yeah. They're the biggest criminal bank.
Honestly, they're awful at it.
But an American whistleblower recently has said that Cameron, in March of that year, I can't remember, I think it was 2013 when the fine was imposed at the end of the year, but in March of that year, Cameron had a meeting with Obama, when he pleaded with him not to prosecute HSBC Bank, because they would lose their license in the States if the prosecution had gone ahead. So they did a deal. They paid, perhaps one day's profits or something, and they got rid of it. So Cameron is deeply involved with HSBC. His great-great-grandfather used to be the head of HSBC in the UK.
Just when you thought the banking sector's PR crisis couldn't get any worse, along comes the revelation that banking giant HSBC has helped thousands of wealthy clients evade hundreds of millions of pounds worth of tax. A whistleblower in Switzerland worked with a team of investigative journalists from news outlets like The Guardian and Panorama in 2010 to expose the extent to which the bank helped the rich conceal assets to dodge taxes, leaking a huge trove of files on secret Swiss accounts run by the bank. HSBC now faces criminal investigations in the US, France, Belgium and Argentina, but not in the UK. And this despite the fact the bank is based in this country, and the leak included details of almost 7,000 British clients. Senior politicians at HM Revenue and Customs are accused of failing to act over claims. But David Cameron has defended his government's record on tackling tax evasion and his decision in 2010 to appoint former HSBC boss Stephen Green to his government as a trade minister.
Well, Stephen Green was an excellent trade minister. He did a good job.
It was announced that Cameron was going to make Stephen Green, who was the chair of HSBC, a lord. It was covered up to prevent embarrassing Cameron when he was making Stephen Green lord. But this gets worse.
But I'd also add that no government has done more than this one to crack down on tax evasion and aggressive tax avoidance. Put it absolutely at the head of my G8 agenda to make sure there's more tax transparency, that big companies pay their taxes properly, and that we raise money from people previously evading and avoiding taxes. We'll go on doing that as a government.
In the meantime, everybody that's covering it up is getting rewarded. But I'm on benefits. And
this is the thing. That's how I actually got to know you, because I saw what had happened. I knew you had a top position in London, top big job in London, lawyer, and then how they'd I don't, listen, this is for you to talk about anything you want, because as much as you want, as little as you want. I mean, I know...
Can we just
Yeah,
say,
stop it, yeah. Would you like to grab a drink?
No, I'm alright. I just need to clear it.
Well, right, as I say, call us to it whenever you want, if there's anything you want to add or anything. Like, I don't even want to start mentioning your private business, but if you want to talk about that, because I know it did get you into difficulty, didn't it? Like,
Really, my situation?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've been on benefits for, well, a long time. I mean, I've had 2 jobs since I was sacked, but both consultancy jobs in law firms.
Do you want a drink?
No, I'm okay, thanks. But I'm now on ESA, Employment Support Allowance, because of depression and I can't concentrate. The only thing I can concentrate on is this, because I know it inside out. But I spend most of my life on Twitter because it's short.
Short, sharp.
Short and sharp. I mean, I can't read a newspaper article of any length.
No.
You know. And last year, I mean, this is a good and a bad story, but last year I was thrown off benefits by Atos. They said I wasn't depressed. So I had no benefit, I had no money at all for 4 months while it was being reconsidered. And during that period I was being repossessed by my mortgage company, which is Northern Rock, which was the first bank.
Northern Rock was,
first bank to be bought out by the government. So my house is now owned by the government.
Yeah.
And I kept saying to them, look, give me a bit more time. I tried to explain my situation. They said, we're repossessing you because it's in the interest of the taxpayers. Well, my mortgage is £500 odd. If they repossess me, I'll be entitled to a housing benefit. I can claim up to £1,000 a month. So it's not in the interest of the taxpayers. But anyway, so I was being repossessed. I was taken to court. But I got bailed out by followers on Twitter.
Yeah.
I got donations and got my arrears paid off. That's nice. I got the proceedings thrown out. It was fantastic.
That's heartwarming, that. Because
it's heartwarming, but
the
problem is I've got to do it again. Yeah, my supporters on Twitter have given me great support. It keeps me going because I live alone, you know, my outlet, I'm a bit of a recluse and my outlet to the world is Twitter.
Twitter, yeah.
But it would, if I lost this house, it would be disastrous. I mean,
yeah, of course, Of course, yeah. Do you regret? I don't. Do you regret?
Well, you said you saw that BBC thing.
That's what I'm asking.
My public position on that is don't blow the whistle. Not in finance. I mean, of course, in the NHS, it's a matter of life and death. I wouldn't recommend it because they're more powerful than you. And they will destroy you.
Yeah.
And they destroyed me. I'm still shouting from the rooftops, and everything I'm talking about is true, and all the evidence is on my website. My website is nicholaswilson.com, so people could check everything I discuss, because it's. I'm not going out there publicly stating that HSBC committed £1 billion fraud if it's not true, but they haven't sued me.
Of course,